bill, on the 1st of November, I got a bill saying that I'd used, in September, that I'd used 13,200 gallons of water. So I immediately went to Access Realty, which is the landlord. I live on Oak Street, and Frankie Williams' apartment there, the older one. And so I went to Access Realty and talked to Liz Lamb, and she called a plumber, and she called Allison in your office, in the utility office. The plumber came out, he found no, he looked at the meter, he found no, it wasn't running when the water was all shut off, nothing was moving. And then Andre from your water department came out and found the same thing. Andre did, when he looked in the back of the tank of the toilet, he said there's a lot of minerals, and you can see, when he pointed it out to me, you can see like a line around the toilet. And he says sometimes those minerals will break free and get caught in the flapper. But I would think, I mean, 13,200 gallons of water in a 1 month period, that's 440 gallons a day. I would have heard that somewhere, and I didn't. If I had heard it, I certainly would have called Liz immediately. I've called her in the past for other problems.
Right.
To me, I'm bewildered as to where it went.
Okay.
And as you see, the next month, I'm back down to 500. Whatever it was, self-corrected. I mean, I wasn't even aware of it until I got the bill a month after it happened.
And you never ever had to go to a toilet and go, oh, let me jiggle the handle because it's running. You never had that phenomenon.
You don't always hear a toilet. A toilet's pretty.
Right.
The mechanism inside the toilet's not even 2 years old.
Right.
Like the plumbing part of it is about probably 17, 18 months old.
The town manager and I spoke briefly today, and being curious, because I'm always curious what council's done in the past, and the two most recent examples that council's had, similar to your situation, in November of, I believe it was November of 2019, it was, believe it or not, it was two at one time. We had Dr. Bradshaw, the dentist in town. He had a bill of $1,100 to his dental practice, and the same month, Bessie Gregory over on Broad Street, she had a $1,200 water bill. And council was in a quandary because here's the dilemma. If you'd have gone to your house and the water had been turned on outside, we'd immediately waive the sewage, you know, but this council, obviously we have two new members, but the council that was sworn in 4 years ago, that night cut both bills in half, the water and sewer in half. Because the council had no, the frustrating thing about this, Mr. Listman, I totally believe you. I trust you. You're a serviceman, Vietnam vet. I know you well. I know what you're speaking is biblical. But council we don't know it's a mystery. We don't know the culprit. And what council has done in the past is when we don't know, slash it in half and call it a wash. That's what this council's done, but council tonight can do whatever it chooses.
I would add, there was I believe her name was Annie Henderson on 2nd Street, and she had a big utility bill.
Barbara.
Barbara.
Yeah, it was Barbara.
And there was no waiver of any kind.
But how long, that was before this council?
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Before this particular group up, and then the council didn't waive the sewer, and they didn't waive any of the water, but we did give her 8 months to pay it off, so she paid the full amount.
Would that be, could you live with that if council cut the water and sewer in half? Because we can't make it zero, because obviously there was some water used that month.
Yeah, but I didn't use it. That's the thing. I mean, yes, water, I guess, ran through the meter unless there's something wrong with the meter, but everybody's telling me no,
Right.
that the meter's fine.
Right.
So I have no way to know that for sure, but I have to take their word, I have to take Andre's word for it, But I had I didn't run the water. I wasn't out, I'm home, I'm retired, so I'm home every day.
Right.
I might be out for a few hours or something before, 13,000 gallons of water, I think I noticed when I came home.
Well, Dr. Bradshaw, just again, I know it's apples and oranges, but his dental practice was 53,000 gallons of water back in November 2019. And Bessie Gregory, her bill was 1,274. So that, that's a lot more than your, and council that night, I think it discussed it had a committee meeting, and council just said, hey, look, because we don't know, we know it wasn't zero, and we don't believe you burned all that, you didn't use all that water on your own volition. And council just said, we'll call it a wash, half the water, half the sewer. Could you live with that? Like I said, I'm not trying to lead the council, I'm just trying to find a starting point. Could you live with that?
Yes.
Council, any thoughts? I mean, y'all can do what you want.
So I have to pay a late charge?
No, and I would also recommend, you don't owe the town any penalties and fees, because you've been in limbo because we had a COVID outbreak.
Well,
This-
I mean, initially I contacted Allison, I was gone,
Yeah.
Colonel Hogan even confirmed.
I would
I
recommend,
was out of town 2 weeks in
Yeah.
November.
I would certainly argue that you do not pay you pay zero in penalty and interest and late fees. Because you've done everything right. You brought this council's attention.
Tried, yeah.
We had a COVID delay, in December. So, but again, members of council, y'all the policymakers, I'm just the presider. What do you see?
I think it's fair. I mean, it's fair to both sides, I believe. I mean, obviously, the town, and Andre, out of anybody in the workforce in Blackstone, Andre is gonna be the most truthful guy.
No doubt.
So when it comes to,
I'll be honest, I've had dealings-
sorry, Philip. Andre is just a super fella. And so I can tell you, if he told you that it wasn't a water meter fault, I can guarantee that it wasn't a water meter fault.
What I have done, I've actually, since he told me that it's like this chemical or this mineral buildup possibly in the flapper, I've marked on the tank when the water's sitting totally still, I've marked on the inside of the tank where it sits, then I turn it off underneath. And then come back like the next, I do that at night before I go to bed, and then I check it in the morning when I get up to see if it's dropped, and it never has. So whatever it did in September, it's not doing it anymore.
So even if
You
that,
didn't replace anything in the toilet?
No, like I said, the works are only about 18 months old.
even if that flap didn't seat perfectly, I mean, even if it
You
ran
have
for a
to do
day.
that for several days.
No, I mean,
140 gallons a day.
A toilet flushing,
toilet.
six or 8 gallons when you flush it.
it can roll through. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're not flushing and it just going out,
Right.
I mean, it,
So, like I said, I mean,
What would we talking about if council chose to act, instead of $112 for water and sewer that month, you'd pay $56 for water?
I've already paid, I paid with, I called, it's on the other side of the handout, what I call normal.
These are
I
the
pay my
minimum,
normal bill.
the
that-
minimum charges.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, for 500 gallons, I pay what I would normally
Okay.
pay for 500 gallons.
So whatever that difference would be,
So the
we,
difference now is $172 and change.
okay.
And so if you're saying that I'm gonna be charged like half, then it would be like $86 or something, whatever.
whatever that calculation ends up being, I move that we slash his original bill in half
All right, water and
for
sewer.
water and sewer.
Is there a second to Mr. Nash's motion?
Second.
I'll give the second to Ms. Jones. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. I know it's not the outcome you totally wanted, but I thought it's the best we can do.
Yeah, I mean, so,
It's weird the timing though. It's one thing for that situation to happen, but for not to filter, it's like your bills are perfect. You know, they're perfectly regular in that one outlier bill.
that's what
Crazy.
Just on, and I would think at 440 gallons a day, I'd have heard something, and I didn't.
Yeah.
That's what's so perplexing.
So will y'all mail
Yeah,
him a
so
new?
we'll send you a revised bill, or what is your phone number, and I can, if you wanna write down your number, I can contact you when it's ready.
No,
The billing
292,
Mhm.
I mean, your computer, it's 292-3687.
3687. And we'll contact you once she's made the adjustment in the system.
Got that one out the way, folks. We'll get into our
So it'll
public
be around
hearings now.
$86 then, I guess.
All right, well,
Thank you all very much.
thank you, Mr. Listman. We're gonna move on with our public hearings. These have all been duly advertised. Public hearing number 1 is the, declaring surplus the town-owned property off Babs Lane. It's 40 acres in the industrial park. I thought, did council declare it surplus already?
No,
Oh, it's not done that, okay.
I think we had to cancel the public hearing
That's
at the
right.
December, and this is a redo,
Okay.
for a previously advertised public hearing.
And we'll now go into public hearing. This is on a proposal that was made to us by a request from SWCI Construction. And before town can sell any public property or building, it has to first declare it surplus. Anyone here to speak tonight for or against declaring the property surplus? That doesn't mean we're selling it yet, just means surplus is a mechanism by which you can sell it. I hear no one, I declare that hearing closed. Members of council, staff, do you wish to declare it surplus, or do you wish to?
Move that we declare the property surplus.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
That is not selling it. That is
Right,
simply
that's just,
this-
that's making it eligible for sale,
Correct.
either today or 5 years from now.
Yep.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The
That's
motion,
that's a good question. How long, once it's surplus, is 5 years too long? I mean,
I don't know if there's a statutory
there's a
limit or
statute.
anything, we can find out.
I think
don't
it's
know.
ad infinitum, but I'm not sure. I don't know. All right, now this is the tricky part of the hearing, I guess you could say. Public hearing number 2, this is a public hearing on a proposed sale of the property. It is the SWCI Construction. It's Jason and Sarah Walker. They do a lot of curb and gutter work for the town. They own the 488 acre Gravett Farm and some property the town has sold them previously. And they want to buy the 40 acres. And I think the proposed sale price is around $1,800 an acre, which is what the town sold them previously a few years ago. And now we'll go into public hearing on this. And in the interest of transparency, since the town advertised this proposed sale, the town has been approached by another entity that is also interested in the property. They're not here tonight. But first, let's have a public hearing. Anyone here tonight for or against the proposed advertised sale of this property to SWCI Construction? Hearing and seeing none, I will close that hearing. Mr. Town Manager, any report or update to the council?
I do not have any additional, Jason and I have spoken, and I told him that we would be getting to this topic, and it was canceled in December. I would ask the council, in the event that it is a favorable disposition for this particular proposal, that we make sure that there's a performance agreement of sorts, because there are some written or verbal statements in here that say that there's going to be a certain number of warehouses and construction and things that are happening. I don't think we want to get again into a situation where nothing's happening on a piece of property. And it's the last piece of industrial property the town of Blackstone owns. So,
Would it be good practice for us to table it until we have a pro forma agreement?
I
that
totally
we could-
agree.
I would
on
recommend a
either of the
performance
prospects.
agreement, yeah.
I mean,
And sit down and negotiate it with Jason Hagan. How quickly would you propose building these buildings, and what size would they be, or what's the dollar investment, or come up with something that he can live with, obviously not imposed upon him, and then present it back in a performance agreement, very similar to what we did with McCormick on Second Street.
You gonna have to, are you gonna do the one for the other guy too?
Well, I haven't heard anything back other than a phone call saying I'm working on it. But I think there would be a performance agreement also, but that would be prepared in a lease agreement that has been presented. Remember, we had a draft lease agreement with certain terms. So there would be some codification of his obligations that would be in there. But yeah, there's got to be performance. You can't do something and then find out 2 years later you're held hostage
the only
because,
reason we can do that is because the town owns the piece of property.
yeah.
But I want to ask you a question, and I think the public has a right to know, but I won't tell anything that's out of turn. Option number one, and what got this request going, was Jason Walker, who owns a property around it, and he wants to put some warehouses for a future development. And what Mr. Nash is saying, look, if we sell it to you, we want a timeline, and if you don't live up to what's in the timeline, it reverts back to town. You know, the county of Nottaway sold all that land out there, out toward Pickett, with no timeline, and guess what? No hotels, it's tumbleweed right now. But in fairness to the people here and those watching, we also had a second prospect. Could we mention the use, or would that be violating confidentiality? They had a different use. We don't say who they are, or what.
Like,
Or you
Different
think,
use, and I don't think you're obligated not to tell. I don't think it's going to blow a deal up. And I don't think you're giving anything proprietary away, but if you'd like me to, I can tell without giving names.
I just think people need to know what's on the table without going into too much detail.
The second proposal that's been presented to council is a 7 megawatt solar farm that's being proposed out there.
on 36 plus acres?
I see 40 in my description. Jason says 35 acres. It's probably more like 35 usable acres because there's some acreage in the bottom that has a conservation easement on it, and it also has some detention ponds on it that are still owned by the town. The reason for the proposal is, one, I think these folks do this for a living, but I think it also is because we've been just put at arm's length by Southside Electric Cooperative, who has come up with a very expensive proposal to run 3-phase power to the Frank Carlos building. We've thrown other proposals about the town providing power and to Southside and Southside metering, and those have all been formally rejected by Southside Electrics and Mr. Carlo. And we have a 3-phase line literally on Mr. Carlo's property that he could use, but it is in town limits, but it is outside the town's designated territory for serving electric. So it is in the territory of Southside Electric. So this solar panel farm, if it were to come to fruition, would be big enough to provide 3-phase power to Mr. Carlo's building.
And I think one important part of the deal that everybody needs to know about is if council were to sell this land to Mr. Walker, basically the town would get a check for roughly $70,000, somewhere in there. The revenue, I will say this, based on our recollection of a closed session we had with one of the other prospective buyers or renters, there was more economic, more revenue potentially for the town than it would be selling. So I think the right thing to do, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, would be to move forward and contact both entities and say, we need something in writing by February 1st.
And a program, or a performance agreement with Jason,
Right.
and then, and having this lease agreement proposal from the other fellow with
Get
terms
our-
and conditions on.
The second party, we had already agreed on a certain date,
Had we? Okay.
and so whatever that date be, I think is what needs to be for Jason.
Gosh, I hope it's not tonight.
No, it was a month, it was 90 days past what we,
Well,
We'll
let's
figure
give them the same, like I say, whatever, give them the same date and say, look, council's gonna make a decision, we'll pick the best offer, yes, Michael Bagley.
I'm hearing two possible buyers, right?
Yes, sir.
no,
One is
one's a buyer.
Buying with one's a lease.
One buyer that's gonna put up a warehouse possibly, and the other person gonna be putting up solar panels. And he's gonna be renting or leasing from the town.
That's
One
correct.
buying.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, the buyer, I mean, his offer is firm. I'll buy it from you, we'll close as quickly as possible, we'll move forward.
Warehouse,
The leasing option
solar panels.
from the solar panels still has due diligence work. They gotta make sure Southside's gonna allow the access into the system. That's what he's doing now. So that deal isn't definitive because he's gotta work with the power company
No,
to sell power back
We
to
were
him.
told that it would be 2 or 3 months before we had a definite.
And that was back in December. And one thing about, the one thing in his favor though, the solar person, all these utility companies are having a lot of pressure put on them. They've gotta produce green energy. So this is something Southside probably would embrace, but again, we're not Southside. I saw one more hand up, Beverly Ames.
Alright, is it, and you're saying that this is the last piece of industrial property for the town?
That we,
Of the former, what we used to call for generations, the industrial park, this will be the end of the industrial park, yes.
Okay, so what happens in the future? We're just not gonna work on getting industry for the town?
They can't get 3-phase down there, so it's not worth anything.
it's
No,
not
no, no,
even-
no, no, no. The answer to that question is possibly, it's, the town could, if, prime example. If Walmart comes in tomorrow or some company and they wanna put something where industry's not allowed, this council could rezone property for industry and have something come there. It just, what this is the industrial park, which years ago was huge, has been whittled away. Rice Corporation got a lot of it in '86. This will be the end of the quote-unquote town industrial park, most of which is not in our electrical service territory. But no, the town's looking for employers, but I'll say this is my opinion, and these 7 folks may have different. I don't think the future of small town quality of life is heavy industry. I think it's small business, it's retail, it's residential, it's recreational. But again, if Microsoft comes to Blackstone and says, hey, look, we want some land to put a data center, we scramble, but the question is, where is the land, where does it exist?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Is there any other area that potentially could become a new industrial park?
I don't know about inside the town limits, but there's hundreds, if not thousands of acres of Fort Pickett near the airport, Pickett Park. There is acreage out there. It may not be inside town limits, but it could very well still come to Nottaway County or this end of Nottaway County. I think
72 acres sitting right beyond the town limits out there.
I mean, the county has told us we can take it into town limits at a time and date of our choosing. They've got
I
that.
just don't wanna see the whole idea of the possibility of industry die because we're selling off the last piece of the property.
Industry didn't die because of that. Industry options died because there's no access
To the electrical.
to power.
We would actually be creating more industry because the building that cannot have 3-phase would then be gaining 3-phase
Through solar.
through the solar.
I'm gonna give Mr. Bagley, then Dr. Hawes.
I think he asked the question.
Okay,
On the solar panel, how long a lease is that gonna be?
we don't know yet.
Get a one-time payment of?
I think we-
30 years, wasn't
No, it's over the year,
20 to 30 years, I believe.
20.
It
It
was
was,
some,
it was the life of the panels
Panels,
themselves
right.
with an extension.
we were told some pretty nice dollar figures, but again, being told something, as we discussed earlier in our work session, we wanna see it in writing, so I think it's imperative that council take no action tonight. Have this town manager talk to both people, say, look, council's gonna make a decision in the first quarter of this year or first half of this year, make us your best offer. With,
We're gonna have a panel field like they got over there near Chase City.
Well, now, Mr. Bagley, possibly, but then again, council, if it went that way, could require buffer where you never know it's there.
You can't see it now.
Yeah,
as it is.
council has a right to require, green space buffers, fences, all kinds of stuff. So this-
Really, very little of the property is visible from any public right of way. Very little of it, because it's tucked in behind Rice back in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Bruce.
But I just thought the people should know there are two offers for the property, and they're different. And what is council's pleasure?
I move that we table until further instruction from the town manager.
Second.
Mr. Miller is second, and Mr. Nash's motion. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Is there a time limit on this table?
A time limit
Yeah,
for them to
whatever
get something
we had
back to us?
set.
Till he reports back to us.
Is there a time limit that council has to make a decision?
No, I think that what I'm aware of on the tabling is when planning commission tables something, they got 90 days. That's definitive. And I'll look up in the state code to see if there is anything that applies to council, but
It's not so much
we'll
our
meet it.
time frame; it's the time frame we set for the individual that came earlier.
we'll get,
And that was set last month, right?
Yeah, but it was informally discussed in closed session. There's been no deal made or no document signed, and we're not in any kind of legal peril.
so we're gonna shoot for February 1st?
I think so.
That agreeable
It
with
could be the
everybody?
council, like Beverly Ann said, council may say, you know what, there's too many unknowns, we may not do anything. Or council may say, we'll pick one.
What was that, the date in closed session? You said there was.
No, we.
But that wasn't voted on, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a lot of those folks are
So
probably
you're gonna
forgot.
stick with February 1st?
Yeah, we want something in writing from both people, February 1st. And guess what? If Bill Gates or somebody comes in here with a check for $1 million, we'll entertain that too. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's now declared surplus. Someone in here could buy it. All right, moving right along, we have a third public hearing. This is a conditional rezoning request. This is for 4.6 acres on South Main Street, just past 10th Street. This is from NEC Investments. The Planning Commission has recommended this request with some conditions for storage units. Mr. Town Manager, you want to report what that is?
Yes, there are 4 proffered conditions which need to be reduced to 3. I boo-booed and reported to Planning Commission that there was no setback specific in the Business General District, but there is a setback specific to the Business General District when it abuts a residential district, which is, in this case, it does. They added a 30-foot setback. Eric had agreed to that, but the town zoning ordinance already does require a 50-foot setback for structures. Not fences, not hedges, not driveways, but structures.
50 foot,
I
okay.
like the 30 better.
I do, I get it, I'm sorry. I spoke out of line and told them there wasn't. And there is not a setback in the BG if it abuts commercial or industrial property, but if it abuts residential, there are specific.
Is he willing to go forward with that, or would he want to go to BZA first?
No. it's
You're okay with that,
perfectly
sir?
fine.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what we're asking is that the council or the planning commission would recommend the 3 following proffers. Mr. Nash would pay up to $10,000 for a proper entrance to the property. As you know, council, or previous to this one, has already voted to try to proceed on getting sidewalk down to Walmart, okay? On that side, that particular side of the street. So you know, and so the people in town know, Main Street is gonna be torn all to pieces beginning about the 1st of June, okay? New storm sewers, new sidewalks, and we're gonna get to 10th Street, new pavement to 10th Street. The next phase, we'll start in the budget process, start setting aside some shekels so that we can have the money to do that. But Mr. Nash, for just the mini storage, is planning on using the existing entrance, and it's really just a culvert in the ditch line. When we go down through there with the curb and gutter, which I would say would be in the next 24 to 36 months, that Mr. Nash would pay up to $10,000 for that concrete driveway to be put in front of his place. Okay, I don't have a figure, so I can't say it's 19,000 or 16,000, but Eric had offered $10,000 towards paying for an entrance when we're going by there incidentally. The entrance for the property needs to be at a 90-degree angle with Main, and it needs to be directly across from Governor Street, if Governor Street ever develops. And so that entrance needs to be moved, and when we're doing the curb and gutter, we'll put a commercial driveway in, of which Eric is agreeable to put in $10,000. We would put a driveway, even if Ursula and Max were still living there, and we were gonna do this project, we'd put in a driveway for them, okay?
And I want to clarify that I didn't just throw a $10,000 figure out.
Right.
that $10,000 figure came from Philip saying, hey, it could cost 6 to 7,000, 8,000. I said, well, look, I don't wanna get 20 years down the road and construction costs go through the roof. Let's just say 10 grand, just
And
so I have a number.
Payment is not required until we get into the project. For some reason, the project dies or doesn't happen, then you don't have $10,000 sitting there that we gotta return. But it would transfer with the property. So if Eric turned around and sold the property to somebody else, I don't know if that's the case, then that would be a transferable proffer, an entitlement on the property. And the subsequent owner would be required to pay that amount. If we want to really codify it, you can record those proffers at the clerk of circuit court's office as you would with a deed or anything else, and a title search would pick it up.
And just for the audience benefit, this rezoning request would allow up to 80 mini storage units, up to. And, of course, 50-foot setback from the Weller property, the old Levy house.
And in the back as well.
Right, the back,
on
right.
the residential side, and then it's being proposed for business general with the proffered conditions, but what I think planning commission was thinking on proffer number 2, or the condition number 2, is that anything additional, if it's gonna be a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Wendy's or Chick-fil-A or whatever else, because the zoning's appropriate for that kind of thing, he'll have to come back and have his conditions modified, okay?
All right, very good. We'll go into public hearing to hear.
And the last item
I'm
real
sorry, go
quick
ahead.
is,
Yes.
as we widen the road and put the curb and gutter and sidewalk, the Weller is dedicated 12 feet to the town in order to widen the radius, if you remember, at 10th Street.
Yeah.
And so we do know we're gonna need to widen that road, and without having a more specific number, we said equivalent to what the Weller's dedicated, that Eric would give a right-of-way, a fee simple right-of-way, so that we could put curb, gutter, sidewalk, widen the streets and all that sort of thing.
10th and Main is better, but I tell you what, it's hard to believe. It used to be narrower. If you're trying to make a right-hand turn to go to Walmart and someone's in that turn lane, you've got to make a severe right turn to avoid hitting them. But it's better than it was. Weller's have been good citizens of this town. We're now in public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against this proposed conditional rezoning? It was recommended by the planning commission, I believe 4-0. Ms. Ames, you want to come?
I can do it from here, I've
Okay.
got a big enough mouth.
Okay.
My question is, why storage units there? Why putting storage units on Main Street? Why not put other retail?
Well, the storage units will take up 0.6 of the 5 acres.
What
So,
else are you gonna use the acreage for?
absolutely nothing. It adjoins my personal property, and that is the simple reason that I want this land. Philip had said that it would convey the conditions. It'll never leave me as long as I'm living in Blackstone. So I had to have something to pay for the property, hence the reason for storage units.
I just would rather not see storage units on our Main Street when we have retail needs, especially if we're trying to get African-American businesses into Main Street.
Well, I've still got 4.5 acres that you can bring a business to me, and we can come back and we can most definitely.
He's not saying I don't want to speak for Mr. Nash, but I don't think he's saying I just want storage sheds and I want it to look empty. He may certainly entertain.
I mean, 4.5 acres doesn't sound like a whole lot of space when you're looking at 80 storage units.
And I don't want to be trite here, but I do want to say this. How long have we ridden by that property and seen that it's for sale? And let me tell you some of the big change. You think we know about Blackstone? You think everybody here knows about Blackstone? Let me tell you who knows more about Blackstone. Target, Walmart, Lowe's. They got data studies. That land's been for sale about 4 or 5 years. And Mr. Nash, wisely, in my opinion, I don't blame him because it joins his property. He's fixing to pay a pretty good amount of money for that property. And so when we sit here and say Blackstone needs this or needs that, you know what determines what Blackstone needs? The market. The market.
Traffic count and
Did Walmart
population.
come here because we said, hey, Walmart, please come to Blackstone. Let me give you a tour of Blackstone. They knew, boom. We know it caught everybody by surprise. We're being looked at all the time. Apparently right now, Blackstone's reached a point where retail-wise, we're at a max. Because I think I'm right, that land's been for sale about 4 years. I'm pretty sure there's a sign out there. So, you know,
Well, I mean, just to say it started at $1.6 million.
That's
And
why I
I'll
didn't
tell
sell
you, I'm
originally.
paying $410,000 for it. So a whole lot less than what it originally was for.
And I've sent several letters for grass on there, as well as code enforcement since it's been owned, so hopefully the grass will stay
Ah,
quiet now.
good point. Grass Nazi.
Dr. Hawks?
As a pedestrian, I just concerned you're going to, do some work on that street. Are you gonna allow for bicycles?
Don't have plans for a bike lane, no.
I mean, some of us.
It is a good question.
What we're trying to do is
A lot of people
pedestrian right now.
bicycles, mopeds, and when you're in that traffic jam and you see people coming and you're trying to dodge them, I'm afraid that if you don't make some type of arrangement, some people are gonna have accidents.
Well,
That's a good.
we'd love to have a wider street. The wider the better. We get it. But the problem is the topography in that section of Main Street is daunting at best. And the reason we're working on that side of the street, which is not the best side to have the curb, because it's opposite from Walmart. The best side to have curb and gutter and sidewalk would be on the east side. That's where you see the trail going, in the grass where people walk. But if you look in front of Clay's, very steep. If you look in front of those properties at the Welcome to Blackstone Planner, very steep. And if you also look, there are a series of utility poles that don't belong to the town that have a significant amount of telephone and communication and all those kinds of things. We do have some power at the top, but they're not our poles. And so we would have to pay to relocate those or widen those. And that's really daunting cost-wise. That's why. Now, can it be done? It can be done. It can be wider. But the topography makes it really expensive right there.
The thing, I'm like you, Dr. House, I haven't seen him lately, but Mr. Larry Tanner, he's a disabled vet. He would ride that, and every day I'd see him on Lunenburg Avenue, I'd pray for him. I said, there's no way he's gonna make it out there today. It takes courage to go out there other than a car. I tell you what, if you're coming out of Goodwill right now and you wanna make a left turn to go, that's like nerve wracking as it can be. There'll be my prediction is you're gonna see a stoplight out there somewhere in that neck of woods in the next 5 years. I would bet. Somewhere. It may
Maybe
be-
on a cost share with a private property owner.
We're in public hearing. Anyone to speak? Ms. Ames, I'm going to count you as having spoken. You've expressed concerns about the use. Anyone else to speak for or against the proposed rezoning request? Or is it conditional zoning?
It's a conditional rezone.
Conditional rezoning, I'm sorry. Hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Members of council, questions, concerns, additional stipulations or motions?
I would just caution you on a conditional rezoning, modifying the proffers at this time, other than obviously the rules already cover proffer number 4, would require going back to planning commission.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Condition proffers are to be voted on based on the recommendation for planning commission. If there are modifications, it goes back to planning commission.
The properties are a 50-foot setback from the Weller property.
Well, that's not necessary to be proffered. It's already in writing. I just,
Okay, that's
I
the
blew it
town
at the
code.
meeting.
That's
Yeah.
town code.
Yeah.
And what's the amount of the entrance? Is it still 10,000 or
$10,000.
up to 10,000?
And that may not pay for all of it, but like I said, we would put one in anyhow
Right.
for a
You
resident.
do that all the time.
This is just kind of the difference, and Eric would contribute that at the time of the construction.
All right, members of council, what is your pleasure?
I move that we approve the conditional rezoning with the proffers as presented.
Is there a second? Mr. Miller has seconded Mr. Wilkinson's motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Abstain.
I'm sorry, 6-0 with one abstention. Thank you, Mr. Nash.
I think we can roll on these other public hearings pretty
Yes.
quickly.
Public hearing number 4 is basically a text amendment, changing the rules on bed and breakfast in town. Basically, if council approves this proposal, a bed and breakfast could have up to 6 rooms in town. Currently, it is 4,
Currently 4.
and we've discovered that, as will happen in small towns, I think we had one that was doing 5 or 6.
I think 5. I think I got a phone
5.
call after it went in the
5.
paper that she said, no, it's not 6, Phil, it's 5. And they were living in there, so it potentially could go to 6, therefore the necessary for the 6 full. But the previous owners were at 5.
Anyone here tonight to speak for or against this proposed text amendment? Just cleaning up the town ordinance. I'll close public hearing.
In addition, there is a change in the definition where it said previously 4 as a home occupation, which means the property owners have to live on site. This takes the home occupation out of it, so the property owner does not necessarily, is obligated to live on site.
Let me ask you a dumb question. If I own a bed and breakfast, so Billy and Joyce own the bed and breakfast, but Billy and Joyce decide to live not there, who cooks breakfast at the bed and breakfast?
You're gonna get Joyce up early and send her on over, and
Telling me it's a bed.
I know how it works at our house.
Don't give us any ideas. All right. Public hearing's closed. Members of council, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Nash has moved. Mr. Morgan has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Public hearing number 5. This basically is about the lodging tax, and this would, I think I'm correct that in the past, bed and breakfast or hotels, whatever, have been allowed to submit the payments quarterly.
I think this first public hearing is actually on the 90 to 30 day requirement, but that public hearing will be right behind this, I suspect.
Okay, so this public hearing is an amendment to the town code regarding the remittance for lodging tax. And what is it basically saying?
Currently, right now, the town of Blackstone's lodging tax or transient occupancy tax ordinance says any room let for less than 90 days is obligated to pay lodging tax. State code says it's 30 days. So we have a conflict with it, so we need to try to get back to what the state code authorizes or permits, and that's 30 days. Our ordinance says 90 days now, and we're trying to get compliant because we got all this lodging coming. I want to have my ducks in a row, and it's really 30 days. Anything less than 30 days, you can collect the lodging taxes. You're obligated to pay them.
Okay,
Unless there's
but
some
31
waiver.
days, you don't have to pay lodging tax.
After 30 days, you do not pay lodging tax, and that's per state code. We're just making our ordinance compliant with state code.
So if someone's at a Fast C training and they're staying at one of Dave McCormick's apartments, the folks doing 2-week classes, they're going to pay lodging tax maybe, but the people there for 2 months would be exempt.
Well, they'll pay the first month of lodging tax, but the
First
second month will be exempt.
All right. Anyone for? We'll go into public hearing on this. Anyone for or against this proposed change? This is basically bringing the state town ordinance in line with the state. I'll close that public hearing. Members of council, what is your pleasure?
So, Philip, what you just said, so if you're staying for 35 days,
You pay 30 days lodging tax.
so any residential person that rents for a year for the first 30 days, do they?
Well, no, I mean, if you rent your house out, you're not obligated to pay lodging taxes in there.
This is only considered for bed and breakfasts.
Well, I think if you look at the definitions for it, I think there's something different because this is a transient occupancy tax. This is not somebody who's here on a more permanent basis. And if you look at those definitions, I think if you look at the ordinance.
I mean, if somebody stayed at the Wedgewood Motor Inn for 40 days,
Pardon?
if someone stayed at the Wedgewood Motor Inn for 40 days, they
Probably do.
They pay lodging for 30, but not the next. But
This would take them to 30
I'm
days
just
that they
thinking
pay
about the
lodging.
accounting nightmare of that. I mean, how is that?
how do we enforce it? How in the world do you
I
enforce
can
it?
understand if the person's staying 30 days, yes, they pay the tax. Anything over 30 days, they're considered tax-free. I feel like it would be for the entire stay.
Right.
Not,
Well, if you read the definition of lodging places in town, of which these rules apply, any public or private hotel, inn, hostelry, tourist home, house, motel, rooming house, bed and breakfast, or other lodging place within the town offering lodging for one or more persons at any time for compensation to a transient. And the definition of a transient is a person who for a period of not more than, currently says 90, it would say 30, either at his own expense or at the expense of another, obtains lodging or the use of any space in a lodging place for which lodging or use of a space is a charge is made.
so I guess at what point do you deem them non-transient? Is that once they hit 31 days and they shouldn't pay any tax at all, I believe then?
I can't speak to sales tax. I can't
No, I'm
tell
just
you
saying
about
lodging
that.
alone. I just feel like
I don't think we're allowed to collect lodging taxes after 30 days.
It's 30 days or less. I feel like.
so if
gotta be
someone
30 or
rents the Gray Swan for 40 days, they shouldn't pay any lodging tax.
No. They pay 30 days.
That's where I'm getting confused. I think that's
Let's
gonna
make
be-
sure we're certain on
30
that.
days.
Let's make sure we're certain on that.
If I come here with orders that says I'm here for 60 days for training, I shouldn't have to pay anything. I don't think. If
I
it-
don't agree.
Federal government, I would say that would say. I
Well,
did
with the
not-
federal government, there are some exceptions
They're gonna be
about
exempt.
having to pay taxes
Right.
altogether. And there's been some issue about the folks at the State Department, do they pay, do they not pay? And there's certain conditions and terms in which they do and certain conditions when they don't. But it's gotta have a drop dead. We're making it better for somebody, but the federal government may get you a waiver out of the thing altogether, or a state employee, or
I don't have a bone
Whatever,
picking
but-
it, but I just want Brittany and them at the
Yeah.
office to be able to have a, it's just, I don't know.
I think we
it's
need Tessie, can we postpone a vote on this tonight and make sure Tessie says that the town manager is correct? That if I stay for 40, I
doubting
still
it.
gotta pay
I
for the,
just-
I still gotta pay for the first 30? And that brings up the question about Airbnb, like for example, I know people that have come and gone, at some places in town. How do we know that, okay, John Doe from Smithfield came to spend the night in Blackstone because he
it's
had a
all
jury?
by honor
It's
anyhow.
honor.
It's by honor now.
It's 100% honor.
We, I assume, would have the right to go and inspect like we did meals tax collections, but
do an audit.
That's just nightmare. I mean, just
Unless you
the
have a
meals
bunch
tax
of them,
alone
yeah.
is, the meals tax alone is crazy. You got 27 places to pay meals tax.
But right now, our ordinance says you gotta pay 90 days. We don't think that that's enforceable. We think 30 days is all that's enforceable. But I think you gotta pay the,
I just wanna clarify that.
certain
This-
that you
Let's
gotta
have
pay the
Tessie
first
clarify
30
it,
days.
and so we know what we're agreeing to and move on to the next public hearing.
But real
Yes.
quick, but this was considered the public hearing, so we don't have to re-advertise.
Don't have to have another
correct?
public
No,
hearing.
That's
we're not
correct.
gonna
Just
increase
to
On any of this stuff, if you table.
Clarification.
So now we're at public hearing. Are we at number 6 or 7?
We are at section 54-145, which
Alright.
is section 6.
And this is regarding lodging tax again, and this would basically mean that if you collect lodging tax from people who come here, you have to return it to the town on a monthly basis. You cannot do it on a quarterly basis. We've
That's
allowed,
the standard now. We're doing it quarterly. Everybody that pays is paying, or excuse me, everybody that's paying is doing monthly now. And what we wanna do, because this is gonna be,
You're gonna start getting some good revenue.
it's gonna be a lot more revenue and a lot more intensive and a lot more payments. We wanna try to keep up with it so we don't have to go back 3 months and try to
and
figure out
the
what
key
we're
thing
doing.
to remember this, just like the meals tax, the person that runs the B&B is really not paying, quote unquote. They're collecting
Pass through.
and then bringing to the town, like the restaurant owner. You and I pay meals tax when we go out to eat. The restaurant owner just collects it and brings it here. All right, I'll open public hearing on this. This is again cleaning up and getting ready for more folks. Anyone in favor or against this proposed ordinance change? All right, I'll close public hearing. Ms. Jones has moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Miller has seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Public hearing number 7.
Exemptions for deposit requirements
Yes.
is where we're at on this one, and we're gonna have a public hearing. Came up recently when Mr. Watkins purchased Haney and Elba's house. He had been in good standing for 24 months with the town, okay? And he was told by the ladies, and that's what they thought was correct, that he needed to put up a deposit. His deposit had been returned to him, and they were asking for another deposit to be put up. So what we did is we went back and looked at it, and I think the slight change in terminology, and it says, an applicant has been a utility customer of the town, and it used to say for 24 months. But what we're saying now is for the past 24 months, okay? And we do not require, if you meet any of these requirements or exemptions, you don't have to put up a deposit.
So for instance, Mr. Watkins, he had good standing for 24 months, which has been many more months.
And that's what we did. We ended up,
After that period, his money's returned to him, and then he doesn't have to put another policy, or
no deposit up.
That makes sense.
What it would look like, hypothetically, suppose he had moved out of the area for a year or so and then come back to Blackstone.
Now, he would have to put up a deposit if you adopt this.
But with this, they say, oh, Mr. Watkins, you have a history of good credit, so you don't have
Past
to pay a deposit.
24 months.
unless he retained a bill somewhere in
They
Blackstone.
have to be current, they have to have an open account now, and it had to have been in good standing for at least 24 months, and then the deposit will be waived.
I got
So
you.
he could have moved, but he had a business account or something in good standing.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. All right, we'll go into public hearing on this. Anyone for or against this? This is trying to be a little more flexible and accommodating to those in good standing. I'll close the public hearing. Any motion of the
Move
council?
To approve as presented.
Second.
Mr. Nash has moved, Ms. Jones has seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We'll go to public hearing number 9.
Number 8.
8.
I'm really in a hurry on
This
this.
is too much.
It is a lot of,
This is a public hearing.
This is deposit refunds.
Mr. Holly,
I'll try to hit you pretty good. Back in, I think, 2016, The then town council adopted as policy that we do not return deposits. Remember, after a period of time, we were constantly returning deposits, and the decision was made in 2016, you gotta close your account if you want your deposit back, otherwise the deposit stays in place, okay? Because we had a lot of people that, I can't remember, was it a year or 18 months or whatever, that somebody had to have a deposit and they were going back, and then they were leaving and leaving us with the final bill. A lot of people leave town, and then the bill comes out 30 days later and we never get paid on that thing. So this at least does get some of it. It was adopted in 2016 and made effective January 1st, but it was never a public hearing held. And this is something the clerk found, and.
Really?
It was,
Good for you,
it was
Clark.
done in a motion. I think Mr. Green made the motion, but it was never put in an ordinance, so.
In a public hearing setting.
All right, so now we'll go into public hearing on this proposal. Anyone to speak for or against this proposed ordinance? Just codifying what's been put in practice, but it wasn't put in practice without a public hearing.
We've been doing it for 4 or 5 years
Right.
now.
I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Bagley, I'm sorry.
A hypothetical situation.
All right.
Maybe I need to go to the town and ask, did my father pay a deposit when he got his electricity or water turned on some 40, 50 years ago?
I would have,
Am I entitled to receive that deposit that he paid?
Back then, they were automatically given back each month
In 12 months.
after 12 months.
After 12 months. If you didn't
So
do
he's probably,
anything,
I would guess he
yeah.
had received it after a year of having,
I'm also going to guess, if there was a deposit put up 40, 50 years ago, I bet it was like $10 or something like that. It probably wasn't a whole lot, but I don't know the.
and we don't pay interest.
good question, Mr. Bagley. I like the way you think that. All right, I'll close public hearing. Is there a motion on this?
So
Ordinance.
moved.
Mr. Nash has moved, Ms. Jones is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Are we now on the public hearing number 9?
We are.
All right, this is something recommended by Mr. Dan Martin, and I need Philip's help on this as well. This is another, this is about the customer furnishing connections. Basically, if you're a customer, you are responsible for the connection between the meter and the house. Or the,
No, you're responsible between the weatherhead and the house, including the meter base. We give them the meter base, but the meter base is put on. This is a result of the ice storm. Man, a lot of stuff got torn off the side of houses, and we put them back on just because we needed to get them back on so we get power back to these folks. And it was 8 o'clock at night. We're trying to get power on, and people are like, I don't know, electrician to call. But a lot of people confuse if the electric meter on the side of the house, is that the responsibility of the property owner, or is that the responsibility of the town? The meter itself is town responsibility, okay? The meter. But the infrastructure from the meter going into the house and the meter, and if you look at Dan's drawing, or the one that he and Jennifer got together, the weatherhead, and the reason it's called a weatherhead because it's a cap so water can't run down the conduit, that usually reaches at least to the eaves of the house. That's the weatherhead. We come off our line to the weatherhead and going down. And Mike?
So if we're looking at this drawing, Philip, is this the meter box?
That is the meter box or meter base.
And so anything
I think at the very top,
from there?
down.
Down would be the responsibility of the homeowner. That's the way it is now. But because of an exceptional circumstance, we put a lot of them back up during that ice storm. Dozens, if not hundreds of them, where trees or limbs had yanked them off the side of houses. But for the simple fact, we try to get power back on. But traditionally, that is the way it's done. Now, I know we don't like to have policies that are verbal. This is one of those verbal things that we've done, and I remember Larry telling me 1,000 times, but we want to codify what is currently practiced.
yeah, I think that's good.
So what about if a home and a lot are not doing it now, going underground?
Mhm.
Where does it meet? Where is it the town's responsibility as opposed to?
It would have to be the meter box.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have to
I
be,
mean,
because there is
granted,
no
the things you have-
weatherhead.
Yeah, the things you have to go
It comes
wrong
up from the
with.
bottom, yeah.
All right, this is just basically codifying that which is being done. As you heard the town manager explain, we'll go into public hearing. Anyone to speak for or against? I'll close the public hearing. Members of council, what is your pleasure? Ms. Jones has moved. Is there a second?
One second.
I'll get the second, Mr. Nash. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And public hearing number 10, this was one that Mr. Miller, this was a good idea he had. Basically where the reconnect fee was reduced in 2017 from $25 to $12.50. Mr. Miller, in an effort to see more homes weatherized, is proposing to go back to $25 a month. And if I understand things correctly, all of that money, not part of it, but all of it would be set aside and used to weatherize, supplement weatherization efforts that are currently ongoing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
As it has been in the past, it just
Right.
has been cut.
The $12.50 currently goes, this would double the amount. We do about $50,000 a year on those cutoff charges. And this is when you get on the cutoff list. It's not, we physically go out and cut
You
you
make the
off
list, you're paying this fee.
on the list, all right? And so we're doing about $50,000 a year of weatherization on $12.50. This would make it $100,000. And with the cost of renovating houses, 50 grand ain't getting it done. I mean, we can get a roof on, we can get a handicap bathroom, we can do stuff like that. But to actually build a house, $85,000.
On average, how many folks make the list, roughly?
Make the list. So it really is, we print out the list probably after we open. So I count it as, when we open at 8 o'clock, it's how many people come in and pay. Because anyone who comes in the door after 8 and will pay that $25. I'd say we probably have 100 to 150 transactions on cutoff day
Okay, so,
of those people paying that.
on a typical month, 100 folks will be impacted by this, typically. Well, I'll now open public hearing. Mr. Johnson, we're in public hearing, yes. Louis Johnson.
I'm here to against that because I have a lot of people that came to me complaining about this.
All right, come forward, that's fine.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, good evening.
And welcome, Miss Scott and Miss Williams. What have changed that's showing that people can afford the extra $12.50? People say having a hard time now. If they wasn't having a hard time, their lights won't be getting cut off.
But you
And
already paying it.
we can't just say, because Pickett is paying this good job, all that give me to come to an end. People are struggling, light bills going up. Philip already said that the light bill give me to go up.
They are.
Price of food is skyrocketing. Sometimes you go in the light bill place, people that lights are about to get cut off, they don't have the extra 50 cents in their pocket, they pay that. They be begging to borrow 50 cents. I think that we should reach out to Nottaway County and ask them for help. Because we pay taxes both places, Town and Blackstone. And why do we always target how do it seem like the poor, I ain't gonna say poor, the unfortunate people that's struggling right now, go take care of somebody else that's struggling with the weatherization because you're struggling because you can't get your houses fixed. So you telling me somebody that's struggling got to take care of somebody that's struggling. That's not right. That's not right. Why not, if you want to raise it up for everybody. Well, we're not gonna do that because we know this town hall be full of everybody up here saying, no, we don't want our light bill to go up. Reach out to the county. First of all, y'all got to start working with the county. I ain't never heard nobody say up here, when y'all saying one of y'all goal was, let's come together with the county. The county's pointing the finger at you all, you all pointing the finger at the county that nobody's communicating. Philip said he written a letter to Nottaway. Okay, that's fine. Go up there to a public hearing so the people can see that you said this at a public meeting that you want to help. Or either set up a meeting. If I can get $50,000 from them, I know good and well y'all can get some money from them.
We have had a meeting on economic development, but you're right, we could probably do a little bit better job of amending fences, but things have been going pretty well, I think. I mean,
Just for your benefit, you do know that we've asked them for $50,000 to help with weatherization this year. A one-time payment. We sent them a letter. I think you guys got a copy that we sent, and Chastity prepared it. Just so you know, we did ask the county for $50,000 for weatherization because the county is holding a significant amount of what is called program income. Okay, and that program income is where those poor folks have made their payments dutifully every month, and the county was obligated by contractual agreement that they would spend it for a certain purpose. and that's to go back into housing to create a revolving fund. They failed to do that, and they've been drawing interest on that money forever. We've asked for a portion of it.
We
See,
sent
they
it
haven't
yesterday.
done
And I've been talking to Ms. Tomer.
See, but you all
about
say
it.
you in a letter, but you go up there to a public hearing, to the meeting, so everybody can know what's
We will,
going
we
on.
can do that.
We can do that, but I've already talked to Ms. Tomer. And as far as, in other words, what you're saying is, that's not gonna change anything. You're still gonna pay that $12.50 and that $12.50, am I right?
You're gonna pay $12.50 no matter what, but
Right.
He's
And then if
saying,
you-
he's saying don't make it 25.
Don't make it 25. Well, okay, it's just like this. We got the pink slip, which is we talking to people that are being late. You being punished because you can't pay your bill on time. You being punished, like with the pink slip. You being fined twice for late payment. Yes, you is. You pay a late payment for being late, and then you pay another $12 and some cents for being late again for the pink slip. So that's double jeopardy.
No, I think, let's make sure, I think you're right. I think
That is double jeopardy.
Billy Colburn's late, the first thing Billy Colburn gets is a pink slip fee. Okay, and then Billy Colburn continues to be late. I don't get another,
So
No,
the
it's a
bills
late
are due
fee.
the last business day each month.
Okay.
If it's not paid by that last business day, the next business day, a 5% penalty is applied.
okay.
If it's still not paid in full by the 4th of the following month, a $12.50 fee goes on.
That's double jeopardy.
Right, so, yeah, so,
Two late fees, one on the 1st, one on the 2nd.
right. So Mr. Johnson is somewhat correct. I
That's
believe.
double jeopardy.
Right.
I don't care how you look at it.
What Mr. Miller's saying, I think, is the fact that you're trying to find ways to weatherize more
That's right.
homes. Now,
I mean, I'm with you on that
You
100%.
can't, but you don't understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I do.
I'm
But
saying that you got people around here sleeping. They don't even now have enough heat or nothing in the house. So here's the thing, and she's got the list over there. The same people every month is doing the same thing, and you and I both agree, Peanut. We see them out there. They dress better than we are, and they having more fun than we are.
I can't punish nobody because it's the same people that
I'm
late
not- I'm
every
not
time.
punishing.
You don't know what their household is or what they're going through.
I
But look at this. That because you're making 100. That because it's 100 people every month. We see that big number 100, and then we add this 25 that give us $25,000 a year in extra money. No, you just can't target people that's struggling and make somebody struggling that's having a hard time pay their bill. Now I'm the struggling person. Now my obligation is to help another struggling person that can't pay their bills to regularize their house.
Well, let's do this. Let's try to have a meeting with the county and talk about that, and then maybe we come back and visit this within a couple months.
Well, I'm already talking to Ms. Tomer. I've had 3 meetings with her.
Well, maybe
And the
we won't
problem
start
is,
talking.
what is that? The problem was, Philip, that they didn't know whether they could use their program money
outside the county to
outside
the
the
town.
county.
But they probably got a budget, but
That's
see, what happened, just for people who didn't understand, the county does a housing, I think the last housing grant was probably up in District 1 20 years ago. Brookville area. So they've got money sitting there, and the question we need to find out is, can we use that?
Right, that's
And
what
you're
we're
right,
waiting on.
Lewis, we do need a better job of, myself included, probably me more than anybody, of reaching out and being seen. You know, we get in our little comfort zones and we're used to complaining, but we need to do something about it. But let me ask you this, not to put you on the spot. You obviously are against doubling the reconnect fee. What would be your suggestion to get more revenue for weatherization, or you just want to leave it as it is? Well, I'm just curious.
I know I'm not gonna step on a lot of toes, but if I wouldn't just punish the ones that's struggling, if I was gonna do it, I would carry the light bill up on everybody.
Maybe put a $5 charge on every bill.
On
for
everybody,
weatherization?
because why should you just punish the ones that are having a hard time and the ones that can survive ain't got to pay nothing? It's not fair.
Well, I mean,
If you put a $5 fee on them, they gonna holler, that's not
Because
fair.
you know, if you say, because you used to say, I'm gonna charge everybody for $5, this thing will be packed because they're gonna be told against it. Now, but it's okay to hit the ones that's struggling for $12 and 50 cents.
or the other option, or the other option, and Philip will fall out of his chair on this, the other option would be, if you want to double weatherization money, you scoop it out of the electrical profits or revenue, but then again, but then again, that raises issues too, because right now Dominion is on, I mean, electrical bills are gonna do this, folks.
Everything is going up right now, and we can't go by because people's the same people is always late. You can't judge people because you don't know what's going on in their household.
Take it back to the 12:50 until after we get a chance to talk to the county.
Well, let me make sure, is anyone else tonight, Mr. Johnson has made it clear he is strongly against, and anyone else tonight to speak for or against?